All right. How's everybody doing today? Today is a beautiful day. It was beautiful today. The sun was shining. The birds were chirping. Yeah. So we have a great show in store for you today. I am so glad to be here to host another show for you guys. I appreciate you for joining me week in and week out and navigating this political force with me. I hope that you learned something today, because a lot of people don't learn anything. We stop learning, and instead we're indoctrinated, aka educated. Don't believe me? Look up the definition of education. I'm going to make you do the work, because I do enough work for a lot of people. So I'm going to stay right there. We're going to not hold off. We're going to jump right into it, because I have a treat for you. Something akin to a spicy repartee, so to speak, because I have some thoughts. Yeah, I have some thoughts. Dear God, thank you for today. Thank you for this awesome opportunity to share truth with the world. God, we thank you for the breath in our lungs, the blood in our veins, and the beat in our heart, God. And I ask you that what is spoken today finds fertile ground and allows your people to rise up and stand firm and fear not, God. So without further ado, God, I thank you, and I ask you just to continue to bless everyone that is watching and myself. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. So we're going to get right into it. So I don't know if anybody's been watching SCOTUS, but I want you to listen to something. And before we get into the show fully, I'm going to give you that spicy diatribe that I mentioned earlier on the matter from my perspective, which I rarely do because I don't like sharing my opinion, because it can be a little hard sometimes, but it's truthful. Justice Samuel Alito went toe-to-toe in a oral debate, or oral arguments rather, with Kathleen Hartnett, who is an ACLU attorney. And let's just take a listen to what she said.
A category of students classified as boys and a category of students classified as girls.
Yes, Your Honor.
If it does that, then is it not necessary for there to be, for equal protection purposes, if that is challenged under the Equal Protection Clause, an understanding of what it means to be a boy or a girl, or a man or a woman?
Yes, Your Honor.
And what is that definition? For equal protection purposes, what does it mean to be a boy or a girl, or a man or a woman?
Sorry, I misunderstood your question. I think that the underlying enactment, whatever it was, the policy, the law, we'd have to have an understanding of how the state or the government was understanding that term to figure out whether or not someone was excluded. We do not have a definition for the court, and we don't take issue with we're not disputing the definition here. What we're saying is that the way it applies in practice is to exclude birth-sex males categorically from women's teams, and that there's a subset of those birth-sex males where it doesn't make sense to do so according to the state's own interest.
Well, how can a court determine whether there's discrimination on the basis of sex without knowing what sex means for equal protection purposes?
I think here we just know that we basically know that that they've identified, pursuant to their own statute, Lindsay qualifies as a birth-sex male, and she's being excluded categorically from the women's teams as the statute. So we're taking the statute's definitions as we find them, and we don't dispute them. We're just trying to figure out, do they create an equal protection problem?
This is an attorney. This woman worked for the federal government at one point in time, and you see how she's because it's very difficult with straight face and with fluidity to be able to speak on a topic that is of this caliber. And she's a lawyer, so she should have her P's and Q's and I's dotted and T's crossed. And she got pressed by a simple statement made, question rather, by Justice Alito. And this boy was born birth-sex male, but she should be able to play these sports. The mental gymnastics is insane that you would have to do, and it makes people who are educated, smart, or intelligent look quite ignorant when they're trying to spin something, especially to a Supreme Court judge. This man has been doing what she does for a long time and has superseded that and made it to the highest court in the land. And you're trying to spoon feed BS to this man over what? Letting some boy play with the girls? You know, I have a different definition of when boys play with girls, but apparently in 2024, 2025, 2026, and beyond, because this is not going to go anywhere because we have fallen into a state of depravity and a mindset of lasciviousness. I just don't get it. This is supposed to be a smart woman. Is this what smart looks like? Where you can't answer a straightforward question and then you say you don't understand or you misunderstood the question. Ma'am, you didn't misunderstand anything. What you misunderstood was that you thought you were going to get some liberal judge to co-sign your nonsense. And it's very difficult to have someone co-sign your nonsense when it's not steeped in reality. Romans 1 actually talks about this, is that you have men losing themselves to a certain mindset. What? It's frustrating, and it should be frustrating to anyone, whether you're on the left or the right or up the middle, whatever. It's frustrating because how is it that you have no legal definition of what this boy is in order to basically get your point across? She had zero definitions. And did you catch that at the end, that as we go along, we accept them, we don't dispute them? As we go along, as we find them over time, you're finding definitions over time to suit your narrative. The Bible says that people have itching ears, and they only want to hear what they want to hear. This is that case right here. And I really don't care for the subject in particular, but it matters because it's affecting your sons and daughters and grandkids and nephews and nieces. It's affecting them because they're having to grow up with this confusion. It's kind of like that whole, Common Core math thing where you show your child, you put the 1 here, the 2 here, and the 5 here, or the 9 here, and then you carry the 1, and that's how you get your answer. But then they go to school and they do that, and the teacher's like, that's not how you are supposed to do it. You're supposed to do it how I say to do it. Doesn't matter that you can show your work and that you got it right. It's not the way we want you to do it. This is where we have come in America, and it's sad. Because this mindset has really left us with our back door open. And I don't mean that figuratively. Other countries are watching and have been watching for quite some time, and they like this ideology. They like it because that means that they get to come in and make moves on us while we are focused on the wrong things. Now that that's out of the way, let's go ahead and hop into the show. Our first story here is called, if it will show up on Instagram, there. Oh, no, you're going to fight me. There we go. It's called India Giver. India Giver. We're going to jump right into it. The United States and India are back on the table for negotiations. Trade talks are officially restarting because they were halted and squashed. And we'll get to why in a second. The media says that it's about cooperation, but that's not the full story. The media is going to spin this narrative, and that's why I'm so glad that you guys come here to get a bite of the truth instead of this alternate reality that the media paints to you, kind of like how a boy can play in girl sports because he says he's a girl. That's an alternate reality. But you come here for a dose of the truth. And it really is not about cooperation. It's about pressure. And it still very much is about pressure. And the reason why it's about pressure matters more than anything else. And it's a good thing that these talks are back on the table, but at the same time, it's not, because this is going to draw a line in the sand to whether we move forward with allyship and partnerships and tradeships with these other nations or not. And we know that India backed out originally of these trade talks because they felt some type of way about sanctions and tariffs. Well, you shouldn't do what you do when you do it and then expect us to just oh, it's okay that you did us dirty, did us wrong. We'll continue sitting at the table with you. So here's what we know overall. The United States and India have resumed their trade negotiations, and this comes after talks stalled last year, like I stated, and they stalled, which I said that I was going to get to that, because India decided to just start buying Russian oil after Trump said, don't buy Russian oil, because he had put sanctions on them because Russia won't stop the war. It wasn't because Russia wouldn't play ball with America. It's because, hey, America's like, hey, we want you to stop this war. You're going to continue this, so we're just going to squeeze you a little bit. And India was like, hey, we don't give a crap that you put sanctions on any country that gets oil from them and on them. We're going to do it anyway. So Trump was like, all right, all those trade talks, all those deals, they're off the table. They're off the table. Until you come to your senses, they're off the table. And them buying oil from Russia is a spitting in the face of America. It really is. And according to the new ambassador, he's saying that new U.S. ambassador, because there was an old one, just so y'all can keep up. According to the new ambassador, it's moving forward and moving smoothly, but leverage has not gone away. America still has that strong arm with those tariffs and with those sanctions. They still have that strong arm. It's not just trade, it's geopolitics. And a lot of people don't understand geopolitics. They just look at it as like America's being mean to these other countries and they're just trying to get resources and stuff out of this country. First off, let's level with me. What's wrong with America getting something from other countries? I will give someone $100 right now if you can name one country, one, that does what America does on the world stage. One. Name one country that puts other countries before themselves, before their own. We can wait. I'll end the show right here and wait. And every hour I'll go up $100 that I'll give someone until someone gives me an answer. The problem is you can't do it. America is the only country that continuously pumps out to other nations all the time at the behest of their own citizens, their own nation. And Trump says enough is enough. We're no longer doing that. We're not doing it. Wait a minute. I have an error over here. What is this error saying? One second. All right, fine. Okay, I'm not worried about that. Just got to keep an eye on that because they like to say my stuff is not working when it is and has been for over 40 shows. But I digress. The U.S. wants partnership to create this economically cohesiveness. They don't want to isolate anyone from any other country. They just want you to do what you say you're going to do. India wants cheap energy and a strategic independence. America's like, okay, you can have that. You can have that, but not at the behest of getting what you get from us while you get what you get from other people when those other people are doing something that we don't want to happen. Nobody wants this war between Ukraine and Russia. The whole world is saying no, 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 no. And India's like, okay, we're just going to do what we want to do because it's cheap energy. America calls India a real friend. That's a quote. But friends are still being pressured according to the media, according to everybody else. And rightfully so, because friends don't do friends dirty. Friends don't do underhanded things behind friends' backs. Otherwise, you're causing a rift between the friendship. So the key takeaways from this is the talks have restarted. We don't know much on it yet, but they have restarted. It is a good thing if they can move forward because it benefits both America and India, but we can't have friends moving behind curtains and whispering behind doors and making deals with people who aren't our friends, right? You want energy, we'll give it to you. You can get it from anyone else. You can even get it from Russia when Russia starts to comply with what they're supposed to. You want allegiances? We got you. We'll give allegiances, but you have to give allegiances back. Allegiances are two-way streets, not you get what you want and spit in our face when you don't like what we're doing. Leverage is what we're always going to have because we're America. Unless the Democrats get their way, and then they'll just give America up to every other nation on the planet. So we hope that that never happens. But watch what India gives up and watch what America demands. It's about a partnership. Otherwise, we can't work together. It doesn't work unless both work, right? So we'll see. We will see. And I have to move over here. Give me 1 second. We're going to figure out why Instagram doesn't work like it's supposed to. Our next story is unclimate-like. Now, this is another bombshell that isn't hitting news at all right now, but it is very much serious. And like I said before, I will release something on this show, and then it will go viral or be breaking news a week later or 2 weeks later. Because when the news is slow, they release old information, and everybody's like, oh, God, it's new, it's new. Well, if you want new, come here now. I'm going to give it to you when it comes out. Not 2 weeks later when it's old and already happened. So the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change has ratified, that was ratified decades ago, is being exited by Donald Trump. So if you know anything about the UN, there's always this coalition to come together and do things. Donald Trump has been adamant about the fact that we give too much money to everybody else and get little in return. The UN, if you watched last week, wanted the United States to give them $23 billion for their humanitarian aid, right? Trump said you'll get $2. And that's on a as-needed basis, as it should be. Why are we giving out all of this money with no return? It's kind of like workman's comp. Anybody that's ever owned a business with any employees, you pay out what that worker makes for that week or month, and that worker could quit, and you never get that money back. That money's gone forever. That worker gets hurt, they can collect the workman's comp. That's how it's supposed to be. But why is it that you put in but never get out? Donald Trump is on that same time and mindset. We're constantly putting into the world. But when there's disaster striking America, nobody's coming back to help America. But Donald Trump is exiting this framework convention on climate change, the FCCC. And his administration is backing him fully on this because they're of the same mindset. This is the first time the United States has ever walked away from the UN climate treaty, and that's raising some eyebrows. He also pulled out of dozens of other international bodies that have had their hands in the pot, so to speak. And when I say the pot, I mean our taxpayer money, right? So you have to be conscientious of that and know that this is all about money. The treaty started out one way and has become a completely different animal altogether. And that in itself is a problem. If the treaty changes, that means the deal can be renegotiated, right? This is how contracts work. If I want to change something, you're supposed to come to the table and we work on the new contract, or we can both walk away. So on January 7th, 2026, Trump signed a memorandum ordering that the U.S. withdraw from 66 entities around the world. The list includes the UN, FCCC, like I said earlier, and related climate organizations. The administration says that these undermine American sovereignty and waste taxpayer dollars, and it conflicts with the America First priorities. I am not America First. I'm very much America only right now. We can go back to being America First when America takes care of its people, right? Its people. We're giving billions and trillions of dollars to everyone else around the world and not benefiting the people. And walking away from these little organizations and agreements that actually are just sucking money out of us and not benefiting us is a good thing. Why do you need us when you have 46 other countries? Oh, because we are the ones paying 66% of the bill. So critics call this a reckless move, but the White House frames it as restoring national control. Here's where it gets a little bit complicated overall with this situation. The UNFCCC was approved by the U.S. Senate back in 1992. The Constitution clearly requires, and I have to get on Trump's head because I am pro-Constitution, I'm a constitutionalist. The Constitution clearly states and requires that the Senate consent to enter any treaty. That is Article 1. Trump is Article 2. But it doesn't clearly say who gets to leave. And that's where the ambiguity steps in and where there's legal action probably going to fall on the Trump administration, because they're going to state, we have the authority to enter and leave treaties. But it doesn't clearly state in the Constitution that leaving part. That's where the problem gets here. So legal experts are saying that the legal experts are split on this whole situation because it doesn't actually state in any clauses in the Constitution where there's a requirement that it's approved by the Senate and or Congress in itself. Courts haven't definitively ruled on this because it's never happened. So this is something new. So there's going to be a lot of legal questions, and you're probably going to see this in the news in the coming weeks. And I will update you as it comes along because the dust is unsettled on this. But I am backing this 100%, this move, because though it might technically be unconstitutional, it's not until they actually define it, which I hope this does give a definition. And if it goes the other way, so be it. I'm a constitutionalist. But it needs to be revisited because this was left open-ended. And I believe it was possibly left open-ended because sometimes you get in situations that get old from a long time ago and you forget about it and it's continuously hurting you. It's like getting a thorn or a splinter and you don't take care of it and the skin grows over it, and every now and then it hurts, it agitates. This is one of those situations. We've been in this for over 30 years and it's not really benefiting the United States anymore because it has changed, and all contracts are negotiable, all of them. Now, whether that is at the hand of Congress reconvening and renegotiating it, or Article 2, the president coming in and saying, we're just going to step out of it, that remains to be seen. But until that happens, I'm pro this move. However, if it becomes unconstitutional, then I'm not pro this move, because I'm not pro-Trump. I'm pro-Constitution. I'm pro-America. So don't get that twisted. The overall key takeaway here is that the U.S. ultimately has walked away from the world's Central Climate Pact, and it did in the name of sovereignty. America needs to put itself first in all aspects and facets. Otherwise, we're going to end up going the way of the wind. And whoever controls the wind, hint, hint, will win. We will argue the legalities later. We're just going to wait and see because it's a waiting game at this current juncture, which I'm fine with waiting. And if they don't ever say anything about it, then huzzah. Presidents can walk out of certain treaties. But they're going to come to a point in time where they're going to have to close that loophole or close that ambiguity and state, hey, the president can or cannot do this, and then further state that the Senate has to step up and renegotiate. And I think that would be great to put in an amendment within that Article 1 stating that if treaties go certain amounts of time without benefiting the country, that it needs to be revisited and renegotiated or abolished. Because there are decades and century old laws that we still live by in this country that are not benefiting anyone but the government. And I'm not pro-government. The smaller the better. Our next story here is, let me go and close this over here. My apologies. Is I ran into a tariff. So the pressure is on Iran, and it just went up. If you've not been paying attention to what's going on in Iran, there's a lot. There's basically a civil war happening in Iran right now. Giving you a little bit of background, a little bit of history about Iran, the country was pretty much like America in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. And then due to some string pulling and some religious wars and stuff, Islam took over. And after it took over, Iran has gone downhill ever since. And if it weren't for the fact that they had that sweet oil, it would be a oasis of dust, so to speak. I don't want to get too wordy and say the wrong thing and hurt someone's feelings, even though I don't really care about those feelings. But President Donald Trump has announced a sweeping move, a 25% tariff on any country, kind of like what we talked about earlier with India, but this is going with any country. 25% tariff on any country that continues trading with Iran. Trump has been very, very open and vocal about how he feels about Iran and actually what's going on in that country right now. So he's saying if you want to do business with them, then you're going to catch a fee, a finder's fee or a joining fee or a friendly fee from us, because we can't have you backing or helping a government that hurts its people like it does. This is not symbolic. This is economic force, which we have the upper hand in. And it comes as Iran is already on the brink of civil war overthrow. And we don't even know what's really going on because they blacked out everything. Isn't it funny that when countries are going through, changes, they start to black out stuff, black out media and all this other stuff. And we're just left speculating until the dust clears. It's really, really strange. But the Trump administration declared that any nation doing business with Iran will face the 25% tariff on all trade. Not just some trade, all trade. All trade. If you're dealing with them and you're dealing with us, you're catching the fade. No carve-outs, no expectations, no exceptions, just the 25% tariff on all trade. The announcement was made public and described as a final and conclusive move before something else worse happens. Because, the left is going to be like, Trump said no new wars, so he better not send anybody over there to fight. I don't think there will be much fighting if Trump moves to show real force in Iran. Kind of like when we dropped those bombs. No boots on the ground, no war, just a show of force. And I think this is the best approach right now, and hopefully it helps mitigate people helping and assisting the Iranian government. Because if you don't know what's going on over there, you should really open your eyes and look. People don't rise up and overthrow governments because they're good governments. This is not like what the left is doing here, where there's feelings and emotions and safe spaces because we think we should have illegals here sucking off of the teat of the government. If you want that, have it in small little packs, protect those people, do what you do, but don't expect the American people to foot the bill. But what's going on over there is people are actually being killed by the droves, all in the name of Islam. And this tariff deal is something that applies globally. China, Turkey, India, Middle Eastern energy hubs, all of it. All of it's going to catch this 25% tariff. So you're going to run into a real brick wall, but it's made out of a tariff. If you trade with Iran, you pay the price, and that trade price is going to come at a heavy cost because we are the world's consumer. I don't like that ideology so much. Rather, we would be the world's exporter, not importer, but it gives us a certain leverage to move things around and push things around in our favor, because if we stop buying from you, you lose a 20-30% share, and you can't make up the rest of that with the rest of the world, that market share that you're losing, because we are the big cheese. Kind of like how we make up 77% of Mexico's economy. They do most of their business with us. We make up 75% of Canada's economy because they do most of their business with us. If they lost us as a customer, what would happen to those nations? It would utterly destroy them. They wouldn't be able to function. And they can't afford, because they're not big enough nations, to do businesses with the rest of the world. That's why we are the big cheese in this situation. And this is a good thing. This is not one of those situations where we go into a global war on terror against ISIS and other Islamic nations and the Brotherhood and stuff. This is real force without shooting a bullet. This is where the pen is mightier than the sword. And a lot of people don't get that reference because they think military is the big bad equalizer. And it is. It is. However, you don't need to use it if you got a smart pen. And I don't mean technologically smart. I mean business smart. Trump is king of kings when it comes to the art of the deal. And I don't mean that as a biblical reference at all, because he is just a man. But when it comes to doing deals, he's smart. He's one of the smartest that ever was and probably will be. And this isn't just about the tariffs. It's about putting corrections without losing American lives. Iran's government is facing internal collapse. This is a good thing. This is a benefit to those people. Nationwide protests have broken out all over Iran. Economic free-for-all, brutal crackdowns on its own people. This is crazy. This is the same type of government that would kill their own people just to test weapons. And nobody says anything. The regime survives because money keeps flowing into it. When you cut off the money, you cut off the power. Their oil sales, their foreign trade, backdoor commerce through so-called neutral partners, all will be cut off because nobody wants a 25% tariff, because then that affects their bottom line. And the sanctions are working, but not fast enough. So you throw a tariff in there and it gives the sanctions teeth. The United States is no longer asking politely for cooperation. That does not work. Hey, let's sign a peace deal. And then they violate it weeks later. That's no longer working. It's not something that's beneficial to the United States, because the UN would have us go over there and put a stop to it by sending American bodies. But they'll send 400 or 500 of their UN soldiers to help. I'm tired of losing American lives, aren't you? This move signals a return to a hardline pressure that America has long walked away from. America used to be very, very tough on the rest of the world. And that's what built us up to where we are today. It doesn't work any other way. We don't get America first or America only without putting pressure to the rest of the world. Otherwise, we will continue to self-destruct as we have been for 40, 50 years, respectively. Our next story, let's go ahead and pop that one off. Our next story is financial pile driver. Ooh. This story just hit the news, and it's heavy. And this is going to couple with another story, so please stick around to catch all of it. The federal prosecutors have opened a criminal investigation into Jerome Powell. And this is not the first one, but this is one that's probably going to make things move. And level with me. Aren't you tired of seeing indictments and charges being flung around, but nothing actually happening? I hope this actually is effective and does what it's supposed to. Otherwise, I might lose hope in our Justice Department. But the chair of the Federal Reserve is now under federal scrutiny and the full thumb of the federal government. No charges have been dropped yet, but the subpoenas have already been issued. And as I've learned earlier this week, you can't say no to subpoenas, which we have another story about subpoenas that I think you're going to like. So saying no to a subpoena brings forth other issues. And this is amid a very public clash with the sitting president and the president's administration and Jerome Powell. If you recall earlier this year, Jerome Powell was using taxpayer money to remodel the Federal Reserve. Giving it some nice new marble floor, some new chandelier lighting, and he beefed up his office and made his office look real nice. That's real strange. Why are you using taxpayer money in a building that doesn't really need it? The building's fine. Why are you buying new chairs? Why are you buying new light fixtures? This is not home network where you have a $1 trillion budget. That's not how that works. You don't get to use our money for play money, and if it's actually needed, it should be allocated for. Just because you control the Federal Reserve doesn't mean you get to move money how you want to, Mr. Jerome Powell. Prosecutors in Washington, D.C. opened the inquiry in late 2025, and it was approved by Trump and a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney. The focus here is whether Jerome Powell made false or misleading statements to Congress about the massive renovations, like I just spoke of the Federal Reserve's headquarters. The subpoenas were issued for potential criminal charges and threats. Powell says the inquiry is a pretext for political pressure to get me to do what Donald Trump wants. Sir, you're taking taxpayer money to play like Monopoly with the Federal Reserve. I know we don't get to collect $200 if we pass go, and I believe you should go straight to jail for using taxpayer money in an unallocated way. But Jerome Powell urges that the Fed He argues that the Fed acted transparently, and that the real issue is the interest rates policy, not the building costs. Yeah, the interest rates policy is a problem as well, which we'll get to that shortly after this one. This isn't just your garden variety probe. They have gone through with a fine-tooth comb, as it should have been, because did you know that the Federal Reserve hasn't been audited properly since like 1955? I bet you didn't. Now you do. Maybe you should go look it up and find out. The IRS hasn't properly audited the Federal Reserve since 1955. This is a constitutional and political collision, what we're having here. The Federal Reserve is designed to be an independent from political pressures. And I have to level with you guys. So I'm going to go off the old script here. The Federal Reserve shouldn't exist. It shouldn't exist. If you go all the way back to 1910, this is when this all started to be really put into practice. They started formulating some things, and by 1913, the Federal Reserve came alive. The Federal Reserve is unconstitutional in itself, but it's here, and because most of you listening and most of Americans in general don't understand how the Constitution works and the Federal Reserve works and the conflict there, it is what it is. You should, teach yourself, not educate. You should teach yourself by reading and learning so you can write some affidavits and notices to maybe get some things changed. But it's not constitutional. And then 3 years later, you have the income tax amendment, 16th Amendment put into place, which in 1864, I believe, Pollock v. Farmer, or 1869, Pollock v. Farmer, where it says that federal income taxes are unconstitutional. How did we just go some few years later and have it flipped on its head where we have a whole amendment for federal income taxes, which is controlled by the Fed Reserve? Just so you know. Just want to throw that out there. But back on script, the monetary policy that you have here is to be dedicated by or dictated by the White House. 1 second here. Not this giving me issues. All the technical issues in the world. Just give me 1 second. One second. All right, we're back. Fantastic. Trump has publicly blasted Powell for keeping rates elevated and choking growth. So what Trump is saying here is that every so often these rates are supposed to change to alleviate the pressure that's being placed on the American people. And Trump is saying, hey, you're affecting my administration and my term by not doing what you're supposed to be doing. And I would just say go check Powell's pockets, because clearly he's getting kickbacks somewhere. Now the prosecutors are asking whether Powell lied under oath for overspending, and a standard that would be required for internal deception. It needs to be looked into. The core tension comes from this. Is this a legitimate oversight, or is it political coercion dressed up as law enforcement? That's the question that people are asking. My take on this is, why isn't that the interest rates changed? Why haven't they changed? Every 10 years or so, they're supposed to change. Why haven't they changed? Why are they still the same? Why is the government and big corporations still sucking the life out of everybody? That's the real question. And it cuts to the heart of the central bank and independence. So the overall takeaway here is a sitting Fed chair nominated by presidents of both parties is now under criminal investigation, as he should be, and no charges are yet there. Hopefully they do, because I'm tired of seeing all of these people get indictments and charges and all this stuff and walking free. Comey should be locked up. All of these people that brought charges against Trump that were found to be vacuous should be brought to heel, because you can't weaponize the DOJ against a presidential candidate or a sitting president and get away with it. Yet somehow, some way, these people got to walk on it. So I hope Jerome Powell don't get to walk on this situation, because he lied. He outright lied. If you guys watch C-SPAN, you can watch him lie in real time. It's on YouTube. If you want to go watch it, go pull it up. He lied in real time. Now, the next story related to this one right here in particular is called Charge It. And I have a video that goes along with this, and you guys are going to be pleasantly surprised. It surprised me, but overall, he mentioned this before, but not to this degree. President Trump took to media, and he's floating this bold idea that 1 year cap should be placed on interest rates. And this is coming at the behest of Jerome Powell not doing what he's supposed to be doing. So Trump's saying, maybe we can make a course correction here by going over his head. A 10% cap on interest rates. I'm not going to say any more about it. I'm going to let the man himself do the talking. So check this out.
With no help from the Fed, because we have a total stiff at the Fed.
Can I ask you on the announcement on the cap on credit card interest rates
Yeah.
that came out on Friday? What happens if a credit card companies don't comply by the January date?
Well, then they're in violation of the law. Very severe things. No, I want a cap on credit card interest rates, because some of them are 28, almost 30%, and that the people don't know they're paying 30%. The people out there, they're working, and they have no idea that they're paying 30%. No way. We're putting a 1 year cap at 10%, and that's it. They know it. They've really abused the public. The credit card companies have totally abused it. I'm not going to let it happen.
Okay, so I'm very interested in knowing your thoughts on this. You can comment on the video on all the platforms and let me know your thoughts on this particular topic, because I'm interested in this. I want to know what you think about a 10% cap for 1 year on interest rates on credit cards. What do you think about that? Would it help you get out of potentially credit card debt? Would it help you pay up, get caught up on your credit card debt? Personally, I know it would help me in some facets, though I don't have a lot of credit card debt, because I knew what credit cards were out the gate. Would it help you get out of debt or catch up? Because 24 to 30%, and they can push all the way up to 35%, 35.6%, I think, percent on interest, that it is astronomical. That you're never paying on the principal. You're only paying the interest in these situations. So I'm very interested in knowing what your thoughts are on this particular topic. Do you think what Trump is doing by putting the lawful pressure on Powell is right? Do you think him wanting to cap out credit cards is okay? Because there are some people saying, like JP Morgan and Chase, because they got to criticize. They're saying if Trump does this, it's going to stop some people from getting credit cards. I could go on a diatribe for hours on how they can't deny you credit. Maybe you should go look at the tax codes and USC or 26 USC, 28 USC. Go look at how they can't deny you credit, but I digress on that. That's a lot of reading, and some of you have the attention span of a goldfish, which is not your fault. They designed it that way to be that way, but I digress. They can't really deny you credit, and if they're going to deny you credit, they have to give you reasons why. They can't say because the big bad Trump made us collect less on interest rates, and we're not going to give you credit cards because we're not getting all of our money. Visa, $1 trillion company. JP Morgan and Chase, $1 trillion company. What are some other ones? MasterCard, $1 trillion. Bank of America has their own $1 trillion companies. These people are so greedy. They will keep you in debt and say you have to pay them back until you die. And they're making money hand over fist. They have more, the people that sit at the top of these businesses have more than enough money to have 100,000 lifetimes of riches. But they want you to pay your 20 and 30%. Go get this credit card and charge your groceries to it. Charge your bills to it. And pay us 20 to 30%. You get a break from having to pay the bill on time, but you got to pay us 20 to 30% to do it. That's crazy. Personally, for me, I'm for the cap. It would give people a break, and I think that should happen every 5 years. 7 at the max, where you give people a break, or just forgive them the debt like you're supposed to do after 7 years, instead of finding some loopholes to keep these people in debt. It's crazy to me. It's smart on Trump's part, but the question still remains, can he do it? I hope so. I really hope so. That would give a lot of people a break. A lot of people a well-deserved break. Americans are suffering and have suffered enough at the hand of big government. And the Fed Reserve, again, is an independent entity. Just so you know. I'm not going to get into it because that would take the show in a different direction. I got to finish the show. Our next segment here is miniature prosecutors. Yeah, miniature prosecutors. And notice that I spelled it the way I spelled it because there's a point to it. At least 6 federal prosecutors have left their post. Federal prosecutors have left their posts in Minnesota, including Joseph Thompson, a top U.S. attorney with a long record of prosecuting major fraud cases. Why would you leave your post, Mr. Top U.S. Attorney, who's got a great repertoire, or is that the right? No, not repertoire. A report of being able to prosecute fraud. Why would you leave your post in Minnesota if you're the best in the business at prosecuting fraud? They didn't jump; they walked. They walked away as quickly as they could because you don't want to wrinkle your suit. And the reason points to conflict between Justice Department leadership and career prosecutors is what the left is saying. Nah. Stop playing games with the people. Tell them the truth. These resignations stem from turmoil that's going on in Minnesota. They'll tell you out of their mouth it's because of what ICE is doing, and it's controversial. They're coming in and doing unconstitutional things. Stop it. If you were abiding by the Constitution, you'd be wrapping these Somalians up quick, fast, and hurry. Because they're stealing from the American people. They're using taxpayer money that come by way of federal incentives to run a money laundering scheme. These Somalians no longer have to be captain of the sea, because they're pirates. Most Somalians are pirates. Hopefully you know that. You know the whole statement, I am the captain now. Yeah, those people are pirates. They don't have to do that anymore. They can just come to America, open up a daycare, a drugstore, and a laundromat and a grocery store, and get federal incentives and not ever run a day of business. The DOJ decided not to open a civil rights investigation into the fatal shooting of Renee Good by federal agents, and instead the FBI took over and the Justice Department and Civil Rights Division was sidelined. Some prosecutors were asked to pursue an investigation into Renee Good's widow, not the officer involved. Now, these people walked because of ICE, allegedly, and what happened with Renee Good. So that's why I mentioned that. Don't want to throw you off. But ultimately, the real reason why they walked is because they don't want to investigate what's going on there. And they're using what happened to Renee Good with ICE as an excuse to dodge bullets. Because they know if they investigate it and they prosecute properly, that a lot of people, Tim the Walls Balls himself, will fall into this hole, and they don't want to hurt their own. These people are paid and bought by the system. They are the system themselves. And they can't hurt the system, because if they do, they'll lose their license. These people are paid and bought. Just like some cockroaches by the name of the Clintons. Like I said earlier, we're going to get another story about subpoenas. And this is it. And this just dropped. If you haven't been paying attention, you're missing out. This just dropped a couple of days ago, and it's escalating very quickly. Both Bill and Hillary Clinton have been asked to testify, and they have refused to testify before the House Oversight Committee about Jeffrey Epstein. Yeah. They refused. They were subpoenaed last August to do so in connection with the congressional probe, and now Congress isn't letting this go quietly. They said, all right, we gave you enough time to play and fight and put up a good moxie, but it's time to play ball now. The House Oversight Committee, led by Chairman James Comer, not to be mixed with James Comey. The names are the same, I know. Very confusing. It was confusing for me when I first saw the story. He issued a subpoenas for both the Clintons to answer questions about the Epstein's network. Bill Clinton was expected to appear Tuesday. Hillary was expected to appear Wednesday of this week. They didn't. They didn't show up, neither one of them. In response, Comer announced that the committee will move to hold them in contempt of Congress, meaning a formal clash with the legislative branch. I'm pretty sure people are probably going to start dying, because Hillary Clinton be doing what she do. She's crazy. So you got to be careful with her. But if enough eyes are on it, she won't be able to move like she used to. The Clintons argued that the subpoenas are invalid and unenforceable, calling the inquiry partisan politics. Now, I don't take too much stock in the word bipartisan. I don't. Because unless it's overwhelmingly bipartisan, it means nothing. One or two people from the other side can come across the aisle and they'll call it bipartisan. So I don't take too much stock in that. But they're calling it a partisan politics. However, this was bipartisan. Their lawyers say, which I don't believe these lawyers wrote this to save my life. I believe Hillary Clinton wrote it herself, because Bill's a potato. He couldn't write anything right now. But their lawyers say they've already provided all the relevant evidence and information in writing and have nothing more to offer. Sounds like they're trying to dodge a bullet. Here's where things get interesting. This isn't about the subpoena and a fight over the subpoena. It's a constitutional and political standoff. Congress is asserting its power to compel the testimony in this particular case and the investigation of the national interest. And the Clintons are pushing back, arguing there's no valid law requiring them to comply. The subpoena is a valid law. You can't just say no to a subpoena and walk away. So, constitutional or congressional authority is at stake in this situation. The executive branch deference to former officials and accountability where Epstein's dealings intersect with powerful people. The Clintons are powerful people. We know they are. Because you can't just delete 33,000 emails and walk away like nothing ever happened. You can't not just pick up a phone call and cost American soldiers their lives and just walk away like nothing happens unless you have power. And this has opened a big spill. It's opened a big spill. Comer's moving forward with the contempt proceedings despite objections from Democrats and the Clintons team. That's why I said you don't take too much stock in the whole bipartisan, because there are Democrats taking the side of the Clintons. Of course they will. Bill and Hillary Clinton, once among the most powerful figures in America, have refused a lawful bipartisan subpoena. They claim it's political. Congress says it's oversight. And if you have nothing to hide, let's be realistic. If you have nothing to hide, why are you not coming to the table? Why? Everybody's all, Trump's in the Epstein, Epstein, Trump. But nobody's looking at the Clintons, who have repeatedly been to the island, repeatedly been on the plane. Nobody's saying anything. If it was really about Epstein list and getting those on the Epstein list, you would be pushing to have the Clintons held accountable. Is anyone truly above accountability when it comes to the law? From the left's perspective, yes. Illegals are above accountability, especially those Somalians. They're above it. And the Clintons and anyone else in the Democrat Party. And I find that to be absolutely tactless, tasteless, and terrible. How's that for alliteration? Overall, I'm hoping to see some things move. When the people's representatives ask tough questions, why do these people get to back away? Trump never got to back away from the tough questions. Did you not watch the debates in either of his, three of his runs? Did you not watch the debates? Softball questions to the opponents, hardball questions to Trump. And he didn't shy away from them. He answered as best he could. Was he right all the time? No. But he answered them. Could the Democrats answer the same questions? Clearly not, because they won't show up to the table to answer the questions. It's crazy to me. Our verse today comes from Matthew 16:19 through 21. Lay not up for yourselves treasures upon the earth, where moth and rust and dust corrupt it, and where thieves break through and steal. Verse 20 says, but lay up yourselves treasures in heavens, where neither moth nor dust nor rust can corrupt it, where the thieves do not break in nor do they steal. And this is the important part, because you got a lot of pimps and profiteers behind pulpits saying certain things like, this is your best life now. Get money now. However, verse 21 says, for where your treasure is, your heart will be also. Those people are letting you know where their hearts are. My heart is with the people. My heart is with God. My heart is with America. And this is why I will always do my best to give you up-to-date information that the media is not telling you. Just do me a favor, a huge favor. Click that like, click that share, click that subscribe, and check that notification bell so you can continue to get the truth. And then the last thing I'll ask of you, make sure you're not one of the ones missing the forest for the trees. Have a good one. Boop, 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 boop.